Nobody ever prepares you for the moment you type your own name into a search bar and watch it vanish before your eyes, replaced by a message that says night record found, as if the world quietly erased you while you were sleeping. And I swear everything inside me froze the second I realized that somehow, somewhere, someone had wiped out every trace of who I used to be. It happened on a night I couldn't sleep, one of those long, unsettled nights where the world feels too loud even in silence, where the memory of who you were battles the fear of who you're becoming. My name Ethan Ward once filled pages of local news articles, graduation announcements, volunteer awards, interviews, charity events, reminders of a life I lived before everything fell apart. But that night, when I typed it in, the pages didn't just stop loading, they never existed. No school records, no birth certificate, no driver's license, no arrest report, no missing person file, not even my old social media, which had once been filled with photos of my mother's garden and my father's fishing trips. It was as if someone had reached through the internet and scrubbed me clean. At first I thought it was a glitch, a database error, but then I checked Depot Government ID Look, archived satellite directories, obituary lists, census records, and everywhere the answer was the same. No match. It felt like the ground cracked under me, because people don't just disappear from the system, not naturally, not accidentally, not without someone powerful making it happen. I leaned back in the chair of my tiny rented room, staring at the screen until the letters blurred. My heart thudded so loudly I could hear it echoing off the walls. I'd spent 6 years hiding from the world, convincing myself that disappearing would keep everyone safe from the truth, from the danger, from the man I was forced to become. But whatever had just happened wasn't my doing. It was a message, a warning, or worse, a threat. I pulled my hands away from the keyboard, noticing the tremble in my fingers. Old fear, familiar fear, the kind that comes from knowing someone is watching you even when you can't see their face. I stood and paced the room, running a hand through my hair, trying to steady my breathing. 6 years ago, the entire town knew my name. Some whispered it with admiration, others with suspicion, because 6 years ago, something terrible happened, something that should have never happened, something my family never forgave me for, something the world never let me outrun. But that night, the internet wasn't erasing a criminal, it wasn't hiding a runaway, it was removing a person piece by piece, like pulling threads from a sweater until nothing remained but silence. I sat back down and searched again, just in case. Just to prove to myself that my existence wasn't that easy to steal. Ethan Ward. Enter nothing. And then, just as panic began boiling through my chest, something new appeared on the screen. A single link, a single file, a single name. It wasn't a government archive or a news article. It was a private forum thread posted only an hour earlier. And the title was enough to make my blood turn to ice. Do not search his name. They're removing him. Rehook, removing me. Who? Why? How? My stomach clenched with dread as I clicked the link. The page loaded slowly, as if resisting. At the top of the thread was a single, anonymous post. They've started erasing Ethan Ward. Not digitally. If you're reading this, stop looking. And Ethan, if you see this, run. I stared at the screen, breath shallow. I didn't know who wrote it. I didn't know how they even knew me. But they weren't wrong. Someone was erasing me from every database. Someone powerful. Someone with access. Someone who knew exactly where to start pulling at the threads of my life. And if they were erasing me now, it meant they were almost ready to finish the job they started 6 years ago. A sound suddenly broke through the suffocating quiet. A car engine. Outside, slow rolling, stopping directly in front of my building. My heart slammed in my chest. I moved to the window, careful not to be seen, and peeked through the crooked blinds. A black sedan idled under the streetlight. Tinted windows, no license plate. The kind of car no normal person drives. The kind that doesn't come with good news. A man stepped out on the driver's side. Tall, broad shoulders, dark coat. His head tilted upward like he was scanning the window, scanning for me. My hands went cold instantly. I backed away from the window. He reached into his coat, pulled out something small, a phone, a radio, and spoke into it. A second man stepped out of the back seat. Then a third. No, I whispered, shaking my head. Not again. Not now. I grabbed my bag, already half-packed out of habit, and shoved in the few things I owned. My wallet, an old photograph of me and Lily by the lake, the locket my mother gave me the day before she died, my notebook with 6 years of secrets scribbled in shaky handwriting. I slung the bag over my shoulder. The stairwell door creaked upstairs. They were already inside. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, steady, coordinated, not the stumbling steps of noisy neighbors. These were men who walked like they owned the ground under them. Men trained to move silently. Men who didn't knock out. My heart pounded violently as I turned off the lights, grabbed my jacket, and moved toward the fire escape window. The footsteps stopped, right outside my door, a soft whisper between them, a scrape of metal, someone testing the handle. Then a voice, "Ethan, we know you're in there." My entire body locked. That voice, I recognized it, even after 6 years. Deep, cold, controlled. It belonged to Detective Joel Ramirez, the man who had spent 2 years trying to prove what happened between me and Lily wasn't an accident. The man who swore he would bury me for the truth I refused to tell. The man who promised that if I ever resurfaced, he'd finish what he started. The lock on my door clicked. I sucked in a breath and shoved open the fire escape window. Cold air blasted my face as I climbed out, gripping the metal railings, descending fast. Above me, the door crashed open. Footsteps, voices, Ramirez's voice. "Check the bathroom, check the closet, he's close." I jumped the last 6 steps and hit the pavement hard. Pain shot through my ankle, but I didn't stop. I ran, across the alley, through the chain-link fence, stumbling into the dark street behind the building. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but adrenaline shoved me forward. I heard yelling behind me, doors slamming, engines revving. My breaths came heavy and ragged, fogging the night air as I sprinted into the abandoned rail yard behind the old factory. Gravel crunched under my shoes. My chest tightened, my vision blurred, but I couldn't stop. Not when I spent 6 years preparing for this moment. 6 years looking over my shoulder. 6 years knowing this day would come. I ducked behind a rusted freight container, pressing my back against the cold metal. My pulse hammered in my ears, somewhere between the pounding of my heart and the hiss of the wind. I realized something razor-sharp and horrifying. They weren't here to arrest me. They were here to erase me, for good. And if Ramirez was here, he wasn't working alone. He wasn't working legally. He wasn't working at all. He was finishing a job started long before the law got involved. I squeezed my eyes shut, swallowing panic. Because the last time I heard Ramirez's voice, the night Lily died, he whispered a threat I never forgot. "If you disappear before I'm done, I'll make sure the world forgets you ever existed." Now, he was keeping that promise. I steadied my breath, forcing my shaking hands to stop trembling long enough to unzip my bag and pull out the crumpled photo of me and Lily standing in front of the lake, smiling like we had forever. My throat tightened. My eyes burned. I whispered to the picture, "I didn't run because of guilt. I ran because of what you told me before you." My voice cracked. And then headlights swept across the yard. Voices shouted. Boots pounded. They found the trail. I stuffed the photo back into my pocket, because one thing was suddenly clear. I was done running. I needed answers. I needed the truth. I needed to know why someone erased my name, and why the only person who ever believed me, the only person who knew what really happened that night, was suddenly missing from every record too. Lily's name, just like mine, was gone. And there was only one person alive who knew why. Ramirez. I tightened the straps of my bag, looked at the lights closing in around me, and whispered, "If they want me, they'll have to catch me." Then I ran into the darkness, straight toward the truth I'd been terrified to face for 6 years. I didn't look back, not even once. As I ran through the abandoned rail yard with the sound of Ramirez's men spreading out behind me like a tightening net, because I knew that if I hesitated, if I even paused long enough to feel the fear clawing up my throat, I'd freeze. As like the night everything fell apart. The night Lily whispered the truth that made me disappear. The truth someone was still trying to bury along with my name. The cold night air sliced across my face, carrying the metallic smell of rusted steel and old oil as I darted between freight containers and crumbling concrete barriers. My lungs burning, my legs screaming. I found a narrow gap between 2 massive containers and slid through it sideways, scraping my shoulder but not stopping as the sound of boots crushed gravel somewhere behind me. Spread out, Ramirez's voice boomed, deeper than I remembered, angrier than the last time I heard it, echoing through my life. "He's here." I crouched behind a stack of pallets, forcing myself to breathe quietly even though my heart hammered against my ribs like it wanted out. I could feel sweat trickling down my back despite the cold. I closed my eyes for 1 second, just one, and Lily's face flashed behind my eyelids. Her smile, her voice, her last words to me, "If something happens to me, don't trust anyone who comes looking." At the time I thought she was scared, panicking, exaggerating the danger. I didn't understand what she meant, but now, watching shadows stretch across the rail yard as men with guns searched for me in the dark, I finally did. She hadn't been afraid of me. She'd been afraid for me, because she knew someone would come. She knew they'd erase us both. I moved again, low to the ground, slipping behind an overturned metal barrel and into the shadow of a The wheels towered above me, thick with grease and old dirt, and I pressed myself against them, forcing myself to inhale slowly. My breath came out as shaky white clouds that vanished in the air. There were 5 men, now maybe 6, spreading across the yard. 2 walked near the fence line, flashlights sweeping across broken concrete. Another circled toward the loading platforms. Ramirez stood in the center, his silhouette sharp under the streetlights, turning slowly as if he could smell me in the darkness. "He's close," he said again, his voice a low growl. "He's not leaving this yard." Something about the way he said it made my skin crawl. It wasn't just determination. It was personal, a grudge, a promise he intended to keep. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the only thing I had left that connected me to the past, a worn photo of me and Lily standing by the lake, our arms around each other, hair messy from the wind, smiling like we had the whole world ahead of us. The edges were frayed now, softened by years in my pocket. Her handwriting was still on the back, "For our future." My throat tightened, because that future was gone long before we realized it. And the man hunting me now was part of the reason. A sudden clang rang through the yard. One of the men had knocked something over. Ramirez cursed under his breath. "Keep it quiet. He hears us. He runs." I used the distraction to slip out from under the rail car and cross to the far side of the fence, moving fast but careful. My boots crunched gravel, too loud in my ears, but the men were still focused on the other side. Ramirez's shadow stretched toward me like something alive. I ducked behind a rusted dumpster and stared at the small hole in the fence, a tear near the bottom big enough to crawl through. I dropped to my stomach and slid halfway under it. Then I froze. A voice behind me whispered, "Ethan." It wasn't Ramirez. It wasn't any of the men. It was softer, shakier, familiar. I whipped around, heart racing, and for a split second, time fractured, because standing in the shadows beside the dumpster, illuminated only by the faint glow of a distant street lamp, was a woman with dark hair pulled into a hood, her eyes wide, her breath visible in the cold air. "Lily. Alive. Breathing. Looking at me." "Go," she whispered urgently, her voice trembling. "You have to go now." I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. She stepped closer, her face pale, almost ghostly under the dim light. "Please, Ethan, not here. Not now." Her voice cracked with fear. "You don't understand. They're not just after you." The sound of Ramirez shouting in the distance shattered my paralysis. I reached out to her, hand shaking. "Lily, how are you?" She pressed her fingers to her lips, pleading with her eyes. "Run." But before I could crawl through the fence, before I could grab her hand and drag her with me, before I could demand the truth I'd been dying for, a flashlight beam swept across the yard. Lily vanished into the darkness. Not ran, not ducked, vanished. One moment she was there, the next, nothing. I scrambled under the fence, ripping my jacket on the wire, and bolted into the woods behind the rail yard. Branches whipped my arms, roots caught my feet, and the cold air burned my lungs. Behind me, I heard shouting, Ramirez barking orders, men crashing through the brush. But adrenaline pushed me forward, deeper into the dark, farther from the voices, until they finally faded behind me. I didn't stop running until the woods opened into a clearing near the old highway. I bent over, catching my breath, my entire body shaking from exhaustion and disbelief. Lily was alive. Alive. After 6 years, believing she was gone. After 6 years blaming myself. After 6 years hiding because of the truth she told me the night she disappeared. A truth so dangerous the police covered it up. The town gossiped it into something twisted. And Ramirez swore he'd bury me for it. My hand shook so violently I dropped the photo. I picked it up, fingers trembling, and stared at it like it could explain the impossible. Then I remembered something. Her last words before she vanished that night. "If they ever find you, don't let them take you back there." Back where? The lake, the cabin, her house, the police station. No, not those. Somewhere worse. Somewhere she and I had gone the night everything changed. Somewhere nobody was supposed to see us. Somewhere Ramirez had been guarding in the shadows before everything exploded. A place called Redwater Facility. A research building hidden behind state funding. Marked as abandoned. Fenced off, sealed, until the night Lily dragged me there, shaking, crying, whispering that she had proof that could destroy lives, expose men in power, reveal secrets buried deeper than either of us understood. And after that night, she disappeared. And I ran. And Ramirez hunted me. And now, someone had erased my name, wiped me clean, made me nobody. Which meant whatever Lily had discovered was still dangerous enough to kill for, still real enough to bury, still alive. Just like she was. I looked toward the highway, headlights streaking through the darkness in the distance. Redwater was north, far north, 10 miles through forest, 20 by road. But it was the only place that ever held the truth. And if Lily had risked revealing herself just long enough to warn me, I had no choice. I adjusted my bag, swallowed hard, and whispered into the cold night air, "I'm coming, Lily." Then I stepped onto the old service road leading north, my breath fogging in the air, my footsteps echoing in the dark. Behind me, faint but certain, a car engine roared to life. Someone was following. Someone who knew exactly where I was going, because this wasn't a chase anymore. It was a return to the place where I disappeared. The truth: someone tried to kill me for two. The night Lily lost everything. And to the secret that could finally explain why someone erased my name from the world, and why they would do anything to keep it buried. If this story meant something to you, even for a moment, thank you for staying with me until the end. Some stories aren't just told, they're carried, and this one was heavy in all the ways truth often is. I'd truly love to know what part spoke to you, what memory it stirred, or what question it left behind. So feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. If this journey moved you, please consider tapping the like button. It helps more than you know. And if you'd like to join me for more emotional, gripping stories like this one, I'd be grateful if you subscribed. Thank you for watching. Truly.